Following up on a promise from the last mayoral election, the Boston NAACP has issued a report card on Mayor Walsh. The grades are an assessment of the administration's effort and achievement on economic development, education, staffing diversity, and public safety. To tell us about the grades is the manager of the report card project, the third vice president of the Boston chapter, Según Idowu. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks for having me back.
Start with the backdrop for this report card, because here it is, a city with the biggest economic growth in more than a century. And how are things for people of color in Boston?
So, as you noted at the beginning, this is the NAACP following up on a campaign promise. Back during the 2013 elections, after a 20-year reign of the last administration, there was a new opportunity for new leadership in the city to go a different direction. And so members of the Inclusive Boston Alliance, which were a host of civil rights organizations, came together and said that after this election, we're going to hold whoever wins accountable and release a report card on how they're doing in serving communities of color. And so through either looking at campaign promises from this new mayor, Mayor Walsh, as well as focus groups, we came down to 4 areas of concern, which were education, economic development, public safety, staffing diversity, and City Hall, because these are the areas of focus and of concern for people of color. This is how our communities will develop in more healthier ways.
And of course, this is a time when you expect there would be more progress because, look, the economy is booming, right?
Absolutely. And so I think we find even so the economic development section that, the Walsh administration has made significant efforts in many areas to ensure that people of color can participate in this exploding economy, but they've fallen short in a lot of areas. And so, the point of this report card is not just to point out these inequities, but also to offer solutions to how to make sure that we are participating in this massive explosion of wealth in the city.
Looking over this report, it's hard to dispute that some of these problems, that most of the problems are really there, but a lot of them are long-term problems, and even a strong mayor like the one we're supposed to have in Boston, as a rule, has limited ability to deal with these. So where would you say that here's a problem that a mayor in one term should have done better on?
So, one of the pushbacks has been, did you all really expect that these issues would have been solved in 4 years? And, the point of this report was not to say that we expected that systemic racism would have been defeated in 4 years under this administration in the city of Boston. But we did want to see significant progress made in these areas because there is an opportunity to do that. So, there were some areas in terms of under economic development, minority business development, where, the Walsh administration made significant efforts to try to prop up minority businesses. But we saw a substantial decline in the city itself investing in these businesses and making sure that they could be sustained. In education, the opportunity and achievement gap, 30-point difference between people of color and white students at the moment. Again, the administration made progress in getting even a policy for addressing the racial opportunity and achievement gap, but that took 2 years, and it's taken as long or even longer to implement this policy. For public safety, body cameras are something that the administration could have done 3 years ago, and the pilot program that took 2 years to get started just ended about a month ago, and now we have no idea where that's headed because the mayor has decided to punt it until after the election.
Give it more study, I think, right?
Given more study, but I think we all know that the city of Boston needs to move forward with this program. The study ought to be determining how we shape this program, not whether or not we do. And in staffing diversity, the question must be asked whether or not they even engage all of their staff in racial bias training. What would it look like if the entire city workforce of almost 18,000 people went through significant substantive racial bias training? So these are areas that significant progress could have been made, and we really were hoping that it would have been made. And so this report is hoping to push whichever administration comes up after November 7th in that direction.
This has been our news, and we're talking with Según Idowu from the Boston NAACP. Según, one thing a lot of people are concerned about is the kind of state of two cities we have around violent crime. The big picture, violent crime is going down, but gun crime is going up. And what about these different claims about how many of these gun crimes are being solved?
So, I know in the city, the commissioner, the mayor, definitely recently have talked about the drop in crime citywide with all crime combined. And you're right that there is an increase in gun violence in the city of Boston, specifically in communities of color. I think it speaks to the trust that does or does not exist between these communities and the police. With a police force that looks like you, that engages you like a human being, like they're members of the community, I think we'll see a lot of this violence decrease. But at the moment, there seems to be a lack of trust between this police force and the community that they serve. And I know the commissioner has initiated different programs to change that model. But again, another area that could have had significant progress, but at the moment is still lacking.
Now, with the police department, you got to contend with civil service, you got veterans preference, you got to bargain with the unions. It's not easy for any mayor to do that.
Not easy, but still is something that needs to be done. And so in the public safety section, we acknowledge that the city's way sort of around this is through the cadet program for the Boston Police Department. And we tell the numbers of how many folks have gone through this program. We don't know what the results are yet, which we state explicitly in the report because the program just started. But we're hoping to see this program scaled upward so that folks do have a pipeline into the police department.
The other concern out there is gentrification. People are putting a lot of hope in housing production from the mayor, especially affordable. But how affordable is the housing that's been generated so far?
Yeah, so this is a major point of contention between our organization and the city. We feel as if our report not only puts forward the experiences of everyday people in the city of Boston, but also is fact-based. The city loves to tout that we are building affordable housing, but we had to ask the question, who is that affordable for? And so in the affordable housing section of our economic development chapter, we talk at length about the city's housing plan, which is great, but there are no clear connected strategies to ensure that everybody is benefiting from this housing boom happening in the city. But also the city's definition of affordable is far different from our own definition of affordable. The city reports themselves say that the average income for folks is $35,000. And at the same time, there are at most one person in a household making any kind of income. And so that's what we use as our baseline for what affordable should be based on. And so using that model, a lot of things in the city are not affordable for people of Boston. Now, the city sent over a number, or are touting numbers now, that they've built about 40% affordable housing units. 9% are for extremely low income, 9% for low to middle, and 22% are market rate availability. That is not enough to meet the demand of folks who are now being pushed out of their homes or having to leave the city that they have lived in for so long. And so we're really hoping that the city takes a deeper look at this and works with us and many other organizations to ensure that the people who built the city get to stay here.
You've spent a lot of time working on this at the NAACP collectively, and the issues are not going to go away after the next election. So what happens beyond this? Yeah,
so this was, one of the pushbacks on this as well was the timing of this and whether or not this had to do with the election. At the end of the day, we are a nonpartisan organization, and the time is always right to let any government know how they're treating their citizens and whether or not people are satisfied. So for us, this is the work is ongoing. We've been doing this for 110 or so years now, and the branch of the Boston branch of the NAACP continues to or plans to continue to work with this administration or a new administration moving forward on these issues to ensure that the quality of life for people of color is improved significantly because time is of the essence.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Según Idowu from the Boston NAACP.